What's going on, guys? I'm Daniel, and you're on Hustle Every Day.
You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain. Pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane. Pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test and expect nothing less, your check as I'm chest.
Today I want to take just a couple of minutes of your time to cover some safety tips with sandblasting that I have learned, unfortunately, the hard way. Now, the reason I'm making this video is because coming up, we're going to be making a video on the 110-pound Harbor Freight sandblaster. And through the years, there's a few things that I've done that I thought, it'd be a really good thing to add into the video, but I realize most people that want to watch that video don't necessarily want to see a safety portion. So I thought I would go ahead and make the safety portion video and then link it up to that video. Okay, so the first thing I want to cover is just your general upper body, like from your neck up, safety. And I know a lot of this is going to seem like common sense, but I want to explain why all of this is so important. So first of all, I generally recommend some sort of respirator. Now, I know if you use something like this, wearing a mask like this is going to be hard to wear, but they do make respirators like this, which give you a decent amount of coverage, not quite the same coverage as something like this. So what I personally like to do is use a mask like this that covers my whole face, and then I will wear a K95 or a KN95 mask. And though I know it's not near as filtering as something like this or this, you typically want to be outside in a well-ventilated area or utilizing a sandblasting cabinet. And if you're doing that, then just having some good general respiration protection can really be good enough. And then wearing something like this to help keep the stuff from flying back and hitting you in your face is also just going to be so incredibly important. Now, I'll say it again. I know it's pretty common sense that we wear face protection to keep the ricochet from hitting us, but I do want to say, even if you can handle a little bit of pain, that ricochet, you might as well be shooting yourself in the face with the actual sandblasting gun, because I believe it comes back with almost as much power as what it does coming directly out of the sandblasting gun. Now, with that said, that brings me to my second point, which is the toxic chemicals that are in a lot of the media that we use. So if you're using something like a coal slag, it'll have beryllium, or some of the other medias that are silica-based have a silica toxin in them. And beryllium and silica can cause breathing issues, cancers, and when that stuff hits you, it does not always just ricochet back off your face. Sometimes that media will actually embed itself into your skin, even if it's not the whole piece, little pieces of it will, and that will sit in your skin and release toxins. So it's really pretty simple. Just put a respirator on of some sort, put a mask on, and make sure that you're protected. Now, I know some of you are probably saying, why not just use a full sandblasting hood? And yeah, that's an option if you want to cover everything, but I don't like those sandblasting hoods because they fog up and the stuff actually shoots up from the bottom and it gets stuck inside, and they're a lot harder to clean out. The masks like this, it happens to these, but it's really simple just to wipe them off, whereas those hoods get all nasty on the inside, and they're just difficult to work with. Now, I know the hoods also cover your head and your ears, but let me flip the camera around and I'll show you my solution for that. So instead of wearing the full sandblasting hood, I like to have a nice bit of ear protection here. This actually plays AM/FM radio, so not only am I protecting myself from all of the toxins in the media and the noise that the sandblaster is making, but I also get to listen to some tunes along the way, which has always helped me work. Now, I also like to just wear some sort of hat because that stuff gets stuck in your hair and it is absolutely horrible. I don't care if you have a buzz cut or if you have long hair, you will be picking that media out of your head for the next week of showers. I swear, you think, no way, there's no way that stuff's going to be stuck in my hair or in my scalp that long. I promise you, you're going to be washing it and picking it out just the same as you'll be picking it out of your ears if you don't wear ear protection. So for those of you that think, there's no point in putting something over my ears, nothing's going to get in there and I can deal with the sound, I promise you, you will have plenty of that media inside your ears. And every time you go to itch your ear, you're going to be picking out little pieces of media. And not that that's a huge deal, but to me, it goes back to the toxins that are in the media. I really don't want that stuff rusting inside my ear, that close to my brain, releasing whatever the heck is in it until I can get it all out. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is sandblasting gloves. Go to Harbor Freight, spend $7.99, get yourself a pair of thick rubber gloves that are going to do really well at rejecting any media that's going to hit them, and also do a good job at protecting higher up on your arms, because that media is going to hit you everywhere on your arms, all the way up to your shoulders. So what I like to do is wear a long sleeve sweatshirt, and then I actually tuck this under the sweatshirt. So I use my sweatshirt as protection, and then this is under my sweatshirt. Now, the next couple topics that I want to mention are actual sandblasting safety tips, things that, again, I have learned the hard way, and I'll explain to you here shortly. First thing, this lid right here. Make sure before you remove this that you release every bit of air that is in this canister. For example, this one holds 230 PSI. Okay, imagine removing this massive, well, it's not massive, but it's heavy. I mean, this thing weighs a couple, 2 or 3 pounds at least. This is a thick piece of steel. Imagine removing this with 200 PSI of air pressure and having it blast up at your face or your hand. I'm going to tell you, it absolutely sucks. Okay. About a year ago, I had a clog in my sandblaster and I was frustrated. I didn't think there was any air left in here because I'd been messing with it for a while. And I was removing this because I decided, well, not on this one, but it was one similar to this, because I decided I wanted to empty out the sand and take the thing apart. And I was just frustrated. I was standing like this, luckily, instead of bent over, I was back away from it. And when this got to the last thread, it sounded like a shotgun or a bead blaster, if you know what that is. It was incredibly loud, but more than the sound, this thing shot about 20 feet in the air, and that was after ricocheting off my hand. I swear to you, I thought it broke my hand. And again, imagine if you were leaning over and that came up and hit you in the face with 150, 200, 230 PSI of air. That might very well be lights out. Now, I'm going to say it again. I got really lucky because I was standing back a little bit. It wasn't on purpose. It just happened to be. But I am counting my blessings, and that's why I'm relaying this knowledge to you so that it doesn't happen to you. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is also related to the pressure in the canister. So what I'm talking about is this air valve here. This is where your air line goes in, but much like any airline, it can travel in and it can travel out. And what can happen is the sand that's in here, while the air pressure is stirring it up, it can actually come back into this tube, come back through here. Now, oftentimes this does catch some of it, but it can still make its way through. And if you do not have this valve shut off, or you have not released the air, and you pop the airline off, you're going to have whatever amount of air pressure you have in here, so 50, 100, 200 PSI, come out through this nozzle, along with any sand that's built up in here. Now, this happened to me also, and actually this wasn't that long ago. It was another clog situation. I was frustrated, and I grabbed the airline, and I pulled it off. And I don't know what it feels like to be shot by a buckshot, but I'll tell you what, if I had to imagine, that's what it felt like. You can see this was over a month ago, and I still have a few little scabs and blood blisters. There's one, a couple little scar spots and a couple scabs there. And that's because, again, I was frustrated. I wasn't thinking. I didn't shut this valve. I didn't release the air. I pulled the air line off, and the sand came out and hit me in my hand. Now, I think that was a best case scenario, because if I would have been bent down in front of that and that would have hit me in my face, I mean, who knows? Could have gone blind, could have knocked my teeth out. I don't really want to think about it. Now, let's just say I was wearing my mask. But if I wouldn't have been wearing my mask and I would have been in front of it, that could have been incredibly bad. So those were a couple of very lucky moments for me where I feel completely blessed not to have gotten more hurt than what I did. And again, that's why I want to pass this information on to you so that this stuff doesn't happen to you. Now, the last thing that I want to mention, and it's not really a safety related with the SANDBLASTER itself, but it's when you are, and I mentioned this earlier, but when you are using a SANDBLASTER, do not use play sand. Use the media that is recommended for sandblasting. There's a lot of it out there. You can get really inexpensive stuff, not much more expensive than play sand. You know, play sand is normally like $5.99. You can pay $8.99 and get a 50-pound bag of coal slag, and it's going to work really well. But that brings me to my second point, and I've already mentioned this, but make sure you're somewhere well ventilated. If you don't have a sandblasting cabinet, go outside somewhere away from people. I know some of you are going to do it in a neighborhood. Maybe try to do it in a time when people aren't around, kids aren't out playing, because the toxins and the fumes, they go absolutely everywhere. And if you're in an enclosed place, that stuff not only is going to get breathed in, most likely, but it's going to get all over you. So my recommendation is go out in your front yard or go out in your backyard, somewhere, wherever you can go close to your air compressor. If you have a portable air compressor, that's great, but you do need a fairly larger one. So just get out away from stuff and do your sandblasting out there. It's also a lot easier if you're in your grass, because the media just kind of soaks down into the dirt, whereas if it gets on your driveway or your garage floor and it gets moist, it's absolutely terrible. Guys, other than that, you guys have an incredible day. Never stop hustling. If you like this video, check out some of my other content. Hit that like button. Please make that sub button great again. Give it a click. And until next time, see you later.